Hello everyone, it's CodeBits here. Today I'm going to be showing you how to get, retrieve, edit, modify, and add data to different Google Spreadsheets using the Google Spreadsheets API or Application Programming Interface. Now, we won't be covering how to actually set up service credentials or anything through OAuth client, the OAuth 2 client. There are actually quite a few already established brilliant tutorials for doing so, of which I'll link a couple that I think do it justice below so that you can set that all up correctly. But we will be covering how to use the service account credentials in Python. So I'm actually using Wing IDE, which I think is probably one of the best development environments for Python because it's very lightweight and versatile, and I think it's great for newcomers coming in, and I still use it now even though I started with Python 10 years ago. So the first thing that we want to do is to be able to set up our account credentials, which we should already have our client JSON, or you can name it whatever you want. You can name it client, you can name it auth, you can name it whatever, as long as it's a JSON file with your service account credentials from Google. As I said, I'll link this below, and they've got a lot of good tutorials with that. So first we need to import gspread and import our service account credentials from OAuth 2 client. And you need to pip install these, gspread and OAuth 2 client. Again, I'll put these down in the description below so that you know how to install them, with your different Python flavor. I'm running Python 3.6, but I believe that this works back to Python 2. I think the gspread client works in Python 2.7 and 2.6, so you should be able to use it through them. But I'm currently using Python 3.6. And this is some previous data that I had, so I'm going to clear that. Okay, so first we want to define a scope, which I usually just use as spreadsheets.google.com/feeds, and I find that should allow you to access all the feeds that you need to. The spreadsheet above, I've made sure to give it sharing permissions, so it does work with, should work with this. But you can do this with any spreadsheet that has sharing permissions which your account has access to, and therefore your service account credentials has access to. So you can use it, if you've got a spreadsheet that's shared through work, maybe it's an accounting firm or something, and you have access to that spreadsheet, you can access that through your credentials, through your service account credentials, and be able to retrieve data or input data through Python. And I think that this can be incredibly important in automating payments and things like that, and I've actually done that in the past. So we need to set up our credentials. I'm just going to call it credentials. Doesn't particularly matter what you call this. And so you're using the service account credentials library, and it's from JSON key file name, and our key file name is client.json.json, and we want to be setting this up with our scope because it needs a scope as its parameters. It needs to know to use the Spreadsheets API with these credentials. So again, this will work with any Spreadsheets thing. Okay, cool. So now we just need to set up a client. So I'm going to call it SP client, so Spreadsheets, or SS client. Doesn't particularly matter again. With gspread, so it's gspread authorize and using our credentials. So now we should have an SS client, not to be confused with the other SS for our spreadsheets. So this should be our spreadsheets client. This accesses all the spreadsheets that you have access to on Google Spreadsheets. Now we need to actually specify what spreadsheet we want to access. Now there's a few different ways we can do this. So we can see here which ones we have. So we can open. So open is like if you've got a name, like up here it's CodeBits. We call it CodeBits. We can specify CodeBits. And it should open this particular spreadsheet called CodeBits. Now, if we have access to, say, a spreadsheet at work, which is done by a Works Google account and not your own, and you don't have that spreadsheet, imported into your own Google Drive directory, and you might not want to do so because, it might be, privileged client information or something, and you can't have it in a personal account directory. but you can still access it, of course, then you can actually open by URL, which I think is a more succinct way of doing it. Some people think that it's not the way to do it now because, you know, everything is very minimalist in coding now, but I personally prefer this. Now, you don't have to specify this edit part. I don't. You can if you want to. I mean, the Google API is very robust in being able to understand what you mean. So even if you include that edit there, it won't change anything. But this is the base sort of URL that you would use. So we want to call this our actual sheet. So this is our entire spreadsheet. So this includes all different worksheets. So down here we've got sheet 1 and copy of sheet 1. So these are our two different worksheets that we have. They're actually identical, but as we modify this data, we'll show you that they're not identical and that they are different worksheets. I mean, you should already know this if you've worked with Excel quite a bit. So now we can actually specify what worksheet that we're working with. So we'll just define our two different worksheets. You can do this in a couple of different ways. You can define it as spreadsheet.worksheet, and you can state a name like sheet 1, and that would work. So if you've got named worksheets and maybe you've got a worksheet that defines all the names of your worksheets, you can iterate over them and do it quite easily. But if you don't and you know the number of worksheets, which I know that it does, because you can state, you know, the number of worksheets. You can state worksheets like this and it will return the number of worksheets. You can iterate over them Pythonically, you know, using a for loop or something, or yeah, something like that, to be able to use the data from all the different worksheets. And you can do that via get worksheet and the index. So 0 is your 0th worksheet, so worksheet 1. That's your first worksheet, is the 0th order. I think that this is more Pythonic, although you can use the names if you want to. If you want to make things a bit nicer in terms of understanding, the names might be a bit easier, but I think that this is definitely more Pythonic to do it this way. So now that we've got the two worksheet 1 and 2 set up, say we want to get the first row, right? So name, budget, cost remaining. So right here, I've kind of already done this. Say that we want to do that, we can say worksheet 1 dot row values and the row values of row 1, right? And we can print this. Or, you know, I can do that. And this will print all our row values from row 1. And there we go. Name, budget, cost remaining of our first worksheet. Okay. So that got us our row value of row value 1. Say we want a particular cell value, so say B2, right? So Atkins's budget, right? We can say a cell of B2, and this will get us our value in B2. There we go. So 100 right here, and it's formatted as a cell. As we can see, it's returned our cell of B2. But the problem is that it's returned as a cell object and not of a value. So if we want the value, we just put in a dot value there, and this will get us 100. As we can see right here. There we go. So 100 right here, and that's fine. Okay, so I'm going to comment that out. So the next thing that we want to do is say adding data. So appending data is the first one that we want to do. Say we want to append data to the end of these things. Say we want to add like a new person, right? And we'll add a new person to worksheet 2 as opposed to worksheet 1. So we'll go worksheet 2 dot add append row, and then we just type in our structured data. So the data comes out as a list of lists. So each column value of the row is a subset of a list. So call it I don't know, child's, and then we can put in actual numbers, 6.0, and that should append the row to the second worksheet. So we'll have to go to the second one as soon as that's finished. And here we go, child's 456. Oh, I just realized that this hasn't actually all been formatted for numbers down, which is why it's sorry, it hasn't been formatted for financial, but now it should come out as that. There we go. Okay, so, but it's not in the first worksheet, in the 0th worksheet, it's in the first worksheet, and there we go. So that's adding data in terms of appending. Now what happens if we want to edit a particular value? So we can say, we'll use worksheet 1 this time, update a cell, and we can update a particular cell, so say C3, so the costs, Benny's costs, right? And we can update this with a particular value. So let's say our value is now 200 instead of 300. So if we run this, this should update cell C3 with 200 instead of 300. And we should see this. And there we go. Perfect. So now our cost for Benny is 200 instead of 300. Okay, so that is sort of adding values. You can also, worksheet 1 add row, and you can add rows to particular places. Okay, cool. Well, I hope that this tutorial has been helpful. I really hope that you've been able to maybe get an idea of what you can do with the Google Docs and Spreadsheets API, and maybe you can integrate this into something cool for your workplace, or make something a bit more efficient, or make some really neat program. So I hope that this has really inspired you to go out and do something with Python. I think Python's a great, very versatile tool for being able to do a lot of cool little things, or even some really big things that I've seen people do and I've done myself. And until next time, guys, stay coding.